Welcome back to Learn Lang Podcast. Today we are mastering the art of professional English.
And we're not just talking about vocabulary lists or, grammar rules.
No, not at all.
We are talking about the upgrade. That step you take to move beyond just being understood to being, instantly seen as a leader, an authority. Our whole mission today is really to transform your linguistic presence.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about delivery. It's about presence. We're pulling some really critical insights from our source, Güvenli iletişim, later gibi konuşmak, which translates to confident communication, speaking like a leader.
Right.
And the goal here, it isn't a grammar review. It's really more like behavioral linguistics. We want to show you how to tweak your language so it just immediately sounds more authoritative.
More decisive?
And completely professional, especially in those high-stakes moments. We want you to communicate with the kind of conviction your ideas actually deserve.
And that's such a crucial distinction to make. The research in our source material, it's very clear on this. The biggest professional hurdle for so many incredibly smart people, it's not a lack of ideas.
No, it's the opposite usually.
It's the absolute opposite. They have brilliant strategies, sophisticated ideas, incredibly detailed solutions. The intellectual firepower is there. It's not in question.
But something just goes wrong at that key moment, the moment of delivery.
Precisely. The ideas are solid gold, but the packaging, it's flimsy, it's weak, their delivery can be so tentative, or it's just cluttered with all these unnecessary words.
What happened?
The result is always the same. Those fantastic ideas, they get watered down, they get overlooked, or, and this is the worst one, someone else champions them, says the exact same thing but with more conviction, and they get the credit.
Wow. So if you're listening and you feel like your competence isn't really matching the recognition you're getting, the problem might not be what you're saying.
Is how you're saying it.
So let's define our goal for this deep dive. We're aiming for a clear linguistic upgrade. We want to take you from what we'd call C1 proficiency.
Which is, for anyone unfamiliar, advanced proficiency. You're fluent, technically.
Right, you're fluent, but your language might still signal that you're hesitant. We want to get you to what we're calling the C1 professional standard.
And that's different. That standard signals competence, it signals confidence, it signals leadership.
Okay, so how do we get there?
Well, to reach that C1 professional standard, we have to face down and really surgically remove the three major enemies of professional delivery. These are all laid out in the source material.
The big three.
The big three. First, we're going after weak language and qualifiers. Then, we're going to strategically get rid of filler words. And finally, we'll conquer that intonation trap that we all know as upspeak.
And if you can eliminate those three,
your professional presence in English will change immediately. And I mean dramatically.
Okay, let's unpack that. I want to start with the first, and I think it's probably the most common and honestly the most damaging enemy. And that's the trap of weak language and qualifiers.
This is ground zero. This is where the lack of authority really begins.
It's a habit.
It's a total habit. It's the constant inclusion of these words and phrases, the qualifiers, that just scream hesitancy or, excessive politeness. Or they signal that you're ready to backtrack the second someone pushes back, even a little.
So what's the effect?
It changes the entire status of your idea. It goes from being an assertion, a position you're taking, to just a request for permission to even have the thought.
Let's make this really concrete. I think we need to do an extended role play here. We need to actually hear the difference because it's auditory. It's not just an idea.
I agree.
So I'm going to play the part of weak delivery. I'll run through a couple of common scenarios using all those qualifiers that just strip away authority. Then I want you to jump in with the strong correction. Show us the power phrasing.
This is essential. A single sentence just doesn't capture the cumulative damage this kind of language does over time. Okay, let's do it. Let's start with, say, a project status meeting. You're giving an update.
All right. Scenario 1. Project status update, weak delivery. Hi, team. So I think maybe we should sort of try to finalize the phase 1 deliverables this week, just so we can kind of see if it works before the client meeting.
Oh, that is painful to listen to. It really is. It sounds like you're inviting a debate on whether you should even meet the deadline. You used, 5 different weakeners in one sentence?
I think it did, yeah.
Let's clean that up. Give it some backbone.
Go for it.
Scenario 1, project status update. Strong correction. Team. Based on the current timeline, Phase 1 deliverables will be finalized this week. We are confirming functionality prior to the client meeting. I will send out the final sign-off checklist by end of day today.
Wow. The psychological shift there is huge. You sound like the person who's actually leading the project.
Not the person just hoping it finishes itself.
Exactly. Okay, let's try a second one. This is a common one. Managing up, you have to ask a superior for resources. This is where people use just all the time to make themselves smaller.
A classic and difficult challenge. Let's hear the weak version.
Scenario 2. Requesting resources. Weak delivery. Excuse me, I just wanted to quickly check in about that budget request. I was sort of hoping maybe we could get approval for the new software licenses. I think it might really help the team out.
That whole thing just screams, please don't be bothered by me. It's not about necessity. The entire approach sounds like this soft negotiation based on, what, hope.
Yeah.
It's not based on objective need.
So give me the strong version. How do I sound like this is a requirement?
Scenario 2. Requesting resources, strong correction. We require approval for the new software licenses immediately. My analysis confirms this expenditure is necessary to meet the mandated Q3 security protocols and increase team efficiency by 15%. I have provided the cost breakdown in the attached document for final authorization.
That is the sound of professional leverage. You literally moved the conversation from my personal wants to the business's objective requirements.
And that is the whole point of power phrasing. Now, let's really drill down into those specific words that the source calls the assassins of authority. We're talking about qualifiers.
The weeds in the garden.
That's a great way to put it. The main culprits are maybe, sort of, and just.
Okay, let's take them one by one. Why is a simple, common word like maybe so destructive to your credibility?
Because maybe instantly turns a statement of intent, something that should be a conclusion based on your analysis into, well, into a gamble, a coin toss.
It introduces doubt.
It injects doubt where there should be certainty. When a professional says, maybe we should try this, they're signaling one of two things. Either they haven't fully thought it through, or they haven't committed to their own analysis.
So they're passing the buck, in a way.
They're passing the responsibility. The subtext is, I haven't done enough work to stake my reputation on this, so now it's on you, the listener, to decide. A leader presents conclusions. They don't present untested possibilities and call them a plan. We're looking for commitment in the language.
Okay, what about sort of? It feels a little vague, passive-aggressive almost.
Sort of is the linguistic equivalent of hedging your bets. It's a direct sacrifice of precision. If you say, the results are sort of acceptable, what does that even mean?
It means nothing. It's a gray area.
Exactly. In professional communication, especially strategic reporting, it demands black and white. There's acceptable and there's unacceptable. The moment you drop sort of in there, you're implying this vague, fuzzy result that nobody can make a strategic decision on. Professionals have to define the scope and the result with precision.
Okay, now for the big one, the one I hear constantly. Let's talk about the insidious nature of just. It often masquerades as politeness or humility. I hear it all the time, especially when people talk to their managers. I just wanted to make a suggestion, or I just need a minute of your time.
This is the most damaging of the three. I really believe that. Because its primary function is self-minimization.
You're making yourself smaller.
You are preemptively apologizing for existing, for having an idea, for taking up space, for doing your job. It shrinks your statement before you've even made it. It makes a necessary professional interaction sound like it's some kind of optional, avoidable inconvenience.
Let's compare that. I just need to present the Q3 budget versus...
I need to present the Q3 budget.
The first one sounds like a quick interruption that you hope your boss will tolerate.
Right, and the second one sounds like a necessary scheduled task that demands attention. It's on the agenda.
So the psychological hit of using just is that you're demoting the value of your own contribution before anyone else has a chance to.
You're telling the listener, don't worry, this isn't important enough for your full focus. But a professional's job is to communicate vital information. If it's vital, why would you minimize it? The analysis is clear. These qualifiers broadcast doubt. They show you're not willing to take full, assertive ownership of your idea.
And that lack of finality, it forces the listener to question your conviction. If you don't seem sold on your own idea, why on earth should I be?
Exactly.
Which brings us right to the solution. Let's do the deep dive into power phrasing.
Okay. The shift here is fundamental. It's about moving away from these passive verbs of opinion, I believe, to assertive verbs of action and declaration.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Propose, affirm, confirm, implement, assert, require.
So let's categorize this to make it really clear. If I'm asserting a conclusion, How do I do that without a qualifier?
You stop saying, I think. You replace it with a definite statement structure. So instead of, I think we should hire John,
You would say,
I recommend hiring John. Or, even stronger, the data confirms John is the optimal candidate. You see the difference. You're presenting the conclusion, not your thought process.
I do. Okay, what about when I'm stating needs or requirements, like in a budget meeting?
This is where we kill I sort of need. We switch to definitive verbs that communicate a non-negotiable need. So not, I might need more time.
But
I require a deadline extension until Friday to ensure the quality of the report.
not, I think we need to save some money.
No. We must reduce operational costs by 10% in the next quarter. You're moving the conversation from the world of hopes and feelings to the world of necessity and requirements.
Okay, I had to push back here for a second because I can just hear some listeners thinking, doesn't that sound arrogant? You know, if I'm in a very hierarchical company, isn't using just sometimes a necessary tool to soften things when I'm talking to my boss's boss?
That's a critical point, and it's a very fair challenge. The source material is wise on this. It makes a clear distinction. This transition to power phrasing is about achieving clarity and conveying conviction. It is not about arrogance.
So where does arrogance come from?
Arrogance comes from dismissing other people's views. It comes from an aggressive tone of voice. Clarity comes from the precision of your language.
So it's not the verb itself that's the problem, it's the intent and the delivery around it.
Exactly. When you use power phrasing, you are simply signaling that you have done the work. The analysis is complete. You are presenting the validated conclusion. If you're in a situation where you need to soften the interaction because of culture or hierarchy, you do it with polite framing.
Like how?
You say, with all due respect, my analysis confirms. You don't soften it by structurally weakening the core proposal itself. Never dilute the data. The objective requirement is still there. To execute this plan successfully, we require X resources. If you weaken the verb, you just invite doubt about whether the requirement is real.
That's the nuance we needed. The strength is in the verb choice.
Yeah.
The deference, if you need it, is in the framing around it.
Right. So for everyone listening, the practical application here is a 3-step process. First, do an audit. Go through your recent emails, your meeting notes, your team chat messages. Hunt for maybe, sort of, and just.
See how often you're using them?
Second, track how often you use those opinion verbs. I feel, I think, just become aware of it. And third, start consciously practicing replacing them with assertive, action-oriented verbs. Make your language definitive. That conscious practice is the single most tangible step you can take to upgrade your delivery to that C1 professional standard.
Okay, let's move on. Let's transition to the second enemy of professional confidence.
Yeah.
The noise pollution of filler words.
Yes.
We're talking about the classics.
Yeah.
And that socially pervasive, like that just infests presentations, meetings, everything.
And this enemy, it operates on a totally different level from qualifiers. Qualifiers are words we choose even if we choose them badly. Fillers are. They're unconscious. They're just linguistic noise.
Oh, why do we do it?
The source material is clear about their function. They're placeholders. They happen when our brain is working hard, our cognitive load is high, and they buy us a few critical milliseconds to find the next word or the next idea.
But those milliseconds come at a huge cost to our perceived competence.
An astronomical cost. If a leader is filling every pause, every transition with them, it just creates this perception that their thought process is messy.
Or that they're disorganized.
Yeah.
Or just making it up as they go along.
Right. They're not delivering a structured, well-thought-out argument. And that is why we have to champion the superior alternative, and this is something that has to be cultivated really aggressively. Strategic silence.
Strategic silence. I love that phrase because it reframes what silence is. It's not just an empty space, a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's a powerful communication tool.
It absolutely is.
But I've got to say, actually doing it is so much harder than it sounds, especially when you're under pressure. And that urge to just keep talking, to keep the ball in the air, feels completely overwhelming.
It is. So we need to break down the psychological difference between two types of pauses. Filler words, they indicate a hesitation.
A hesitation.
It's a pause that's filled with anxiety. It signals to the listener that the speaker is losing their train of thought or they're struggling to find the right word. It sounds reactive. It sounds weak.
And what's the alternative?
The alternative is the strategic pause.
Yeah.
This is a moment of controlled, intentional silence. It signals something completely different. It signals that the speaker is thoughtful, that they're synthesizing complex information.
And preparing to say something important.
Exactly, something of higher import. A confident speaker trains themselves to recognize that moment of internal search, that little cognitive stutter we all have, and instead of panicking and filling it with noise, they accept the silence.
That control is everything. If I say, our marketing strategy needs a complete overhaul of its digital outreach, that is a signal of a struggle. It's a fumble.
It is. Now, listen to the difference. Our marketing strategy needs, pause, a complete overhaul of its digital outreach.
Okay, yeah.
That silence suggests you weren't struggling to find the word overhaul. It suggests you were considering all the options and deliberately confirming that complete overhaul was the most precise, most accurate term to convey the seriousness of the situation.
So the silence gives the speaker perceived control.
Total control. The psychological analysis on this is solid. When a speaker pauses deliberately, they sound thoughtful, they sound authoritative, they are, quite literally, orchestrating the tempo of the conversation.
The subtext is that they value their own words enough not to rush them.
Right. Which suggests the words themselves are a scarce, valuable resource.
And this is so critical in a professional setting. Think about the status difference it conveys. When someone is just talking a mile a minute, but every other clause is punctuated with an or an they sound rushed. They sound anxious.
Like they're trying to cram too much information in before they get cut off.
Whereas the person who uses silence, they project patience. And in a fast-paced business environment, patience is a massive signal of internal composure. It's a high-status signal.
And the pause, it doesn't just benefit the speaker, it actually helps the listener.
How so?
Well, a strategic pause elevates the importance of whatever you just said. If you deliver a really strong, important statement like, the new data model necessitates immediate policy changes across all regional divisions.
Okay.
And then you just let 2 seconds of silence hang in the air after that. That silence forces the listener to actually process what you said, to weigh its gravity. It's like an auditory spotlight.
Whereas if you'd filled that space with an while you were already moving on to your next point,
the listener's brain just categorizes the whole thing as one long, low-importance stream of consciousness. The impact is lost.
let's talk about the mechanics of this. How does a learner actually overcome that internal panic that leads to the filler word in the first place? Because that's the real challenge.
It is. It takes vigilance. And you need a specific, practiced coping mechanism. The second you feel that impulse, that rising in your throat, you have to have a plan to interrupt that reaction.
Like what?
A very simple, practical exercise is what I call internal counting. The moment you feel the coming, you consciously, in your head, count 1 Mississippi. While you maintain eye contact with the person you're speaking to, you force your brain's energy into counting, not into making a noise.
That's almost like dox breathing for public speaking. You're using a controlled internal process to override an anxious physical reflex.
That's exactly what it is. Another technique is to use that pause as a moment to take a small, deep breath. The tiny intake of air physically replaces the filler sound. It centers your body, and it prepares your vocal cords for the next definitive statement you're about to make.
So when you pause to think, the message you're sending is, I am choosing my words with care.
Not, I am lost in scrambling for words.
We should probably touch on cultural differences here, too. In some cultures, rapid-fire speech is the norm.
Yeah.
How do you use strategic silence in that context without just seeming slow or even maybe a little hostile?
That's a good point, and it requires calibration. But the principle holds. Strategic silence isn't about stopping the conversation for 10 seconds. It's about replacing a half-second reactive with a controlled 2-second pause.
Those are relative.
It's relative. And in competitive professional environments, especially in North American and European business, silence is almost universally read as deliberation. Particularly in a negotiation. As the source material implies, the person who speaks first or who sounds like they're scrambling for words, they often lose leverage.
So cultivating silence shows you're operating from a position of strength and composure, no matter what the local conversational speed is.
Right. So the actionable advice here is really clear. You have to actively practice this. When you feel the need to use a filler, use silence instead. Reframe that moment of internal searching. It's not a point of vulnerability. It's a strategic communication tool that reinforces your patience and your thoughtfulness.
It demands total internal vigilance.
It really does. The moment you feel that anxiety, that rising, you have to bite it back, hold the space, and breathe. That deliberate practice is what replaces a signal of panic with a signal of power. It's an absolute cornerstone of professional delivery.
All right, let's get to our third and final key concept from the source material. And this is one that can be the most difficult for even very advanced learners to fix because it's so unconscious. We're talking about intonation, specifically the trap of upspeak.
This is the third enemy because it's so structural. It completely destroys the linguistic function of finality. Upspeak is, simply put, that upward vocal inflection you hear at the end of a declarative sentence. It makes a statement sound, essentially like a question.
And its impact is so insidious because it's usually a deeply ingrained habit. People don't even know they're doing it. A speaker can have perfect grammar, they can use amazing power phrasing, but then their vocal cords completely betray their confidence. Every firm statement they make has this questioning sound at the end.
And the professional intonation standard in formal English business communication is, well, it's an uncompromising rule. To sound authoritative, to convey certainty, your voice must always go down at the end of a statement.
Statements need closure, questions need answers.
And when you use upspeak, you are confusing those two fundamental functions.
Let's really amplify the auditory damage here. I'll give a sentence that should be a firm decision, a declarative statement, but I'll use that upspeak intonation. Imagine this is a key project decision being announced. Our budget will allocate 60% of funds to marketing and 40% to R&D.
See, the certainty just vanishes the second your pitch rises. The listener immediately perceives ambiguity. They're thinking, is that the final budget? Are we still discussing this? Are you asking me to approve this decision for you?
It completely blurs the line between a settled fact and an open question.
And it forces the listener into this unwanted role of being your validator.
Now let's hear the correct standard with that downward inflection. Our budget will allocate 60% of funds to marketing and 40% to R&D.
That lands. It lands with finality. It lands with decisiveness. The psychological effect of upspeak is that it subconsciously signals a need for approval. It suggests a lack of conviction, a lack of finality, which is the absolute opposite of leadership communication, where being decisive is everything.
If you sound unsure about the status of your own sentence, you're basically inviting people to debate you or just ignore you.
You are. That descending intonation, it functions linguistically as a period, a full stop. It closes the thought. It leaves zero ambiguity that what you just said was a firm proposal or a fact.
It's like the verbal equivalent of hitting the enter key on your keyboard.
That's a perfect analogy. The message is sent, it's delivered, and now you're ready to move on without needing the listener to verbally sign off on what you just said. When you end with that upward inflection, you just leave the thought hanging in the air, waiting for someone else to close the loop.
And leaders close loops. They don't leave them open.
Exactly.
Now, we have to get into the technical challenges here, especially for advanced learners. The source points out that non-native speakers often struggle with this because of interference from the intonation patterns of their first language.
L1 interference is a huge factor. In some languages, like Japanese, or even in some regional dialects of German, a rising pitch at the end of a clause might not signal a question at all. It might signal emphasis, or just that you're continuing your thought.
So when they carry that pattern over into English,
Their professional declarations become accidental questions. Overcoming that requires very specific, very physical vocal control practice.
this sounds less like a brain thing and more like training muscles in your larynx, your diaphragm.
That's exactly what it is. It's physiological training.
So what are the mechanical steps? How do you achieve a consistent downward inflection?
First, you have to identify where the pitch is changing. It's usually on the last 2 or 3 syllables of the sentence. The main technique is to use controlled breath support from your diaphragm on those final words.
What do you mean by that?
A lot of the time, upspeak happens when we're running out of breath at the end of a sentence and our voice just naturally goes up. Instead, you have to intentionally drive the sound down and out with a controlled push of air.
So it's about pushing the air slightly at the very end to create a definitive sound.
Yes. Think of the final word like an anchor that you're dropping into the ground. A great exercise is to practice with simple declarative sentences. The meeting is at 3. I confirmed the results. And as you say them, physically feel that slight downward pitch movement on the final word.
And record yourself.
You have to record yourself and listen back specifically for the pitch trajectory of those final syllables. If you hear it lilt upward, even a little bit, you know exactly where you need to apply that technical correction.
What if someone just naturally have a higher pitched speaking voice? Does that make this harder?
Not Not necessarily. Downward inflection is about the relative change in pitch. It's not about the absolute pitch. Someone with a high voice can still effectively drive the sound down on that final word relative to their normal speaking pitch. It's the movement that counts.
The key is just practicing that conscious vocal control.
It is. You have to train yourself to sound like a conclusion, not an invitation for more doubt.
And the consequences of not fixing upspeak, they go beyond just one conversation. Over time, that perpetual upward inflection can really damage your career progression. It just fosters this perception that you're always tentative.
That's the crucial long-term danger. If every single update you give sounds like you're seeking validation, people will unconsciously stop seeing you as a source of final decisions. They'll start going to your colleagues who communicate with that definitive downward tone, even if your ideas are actually better. Mastering your intonation is really mastering that final critical layer of your professional credibility.
This deep dive has really given us a detailed, actionable blueprint for achieving that C1 professional confidence in how we deliver a message. So let's do a quick recap of the 3 critical steps we've covered.
Step 1 was all about linguistic decluttering. We have to aggressively remove those qualifiers, maybe, sort of, and especially that confidence killer, just.
And we replace them with assertive, action-oriented power phrasing, focusing on clarity, not false humility.
Step 2, embrace the power of silence. We have to stop using filler words like and
And instead, we consciously reframe that moment of thought. It's not panic. It's a moment of strategic silence, which signals composure and controlled deliberation.
And finally, step 3, master your vocal delivery. You have to eliminate upspeak. Every single declarative statement must end with a precise downward intonation. That signals finality. It signals conviction.
And it takes practice.
It takes real technical vocal practice.
The thing that I find so profound about these 3 steps is what the source concludes. Confidence in communication is a skill, not a talent.
And that distinction is so liberating, isn't it? A talent feels fixed, something you either have or you don't. But a skill is learnable, it's improvable. You can get better at it with conscious, repetitive practice.
So you don't have to wait until you feel confident on the inside to start sounding confident on the outside.
Not at all. You just implement the observable mechanics of assertive language delivery. And what's amazing is that over time, that assertive external delivery actually reinforces and helps build genuine internal confidence. But the journey has to start with these 3 tangible linguistic changes.
Building on that exact idea, that linguistic confidence is a learnable skill that gives you real power, I want to leave you, our listener, with one final, provocative thought to take away. We've talked about how choosing strategic silence over a filler word signals patience and control. But we only really touched on the power this gives you in a high-stakes negotiation.
Yes, because the ultimate display of authority is the ability to command time and space in a really pressurized conversation.
Exactly. So think about this. You're in a tough negotiation. You're presented with a difficult proposal, a challenging counteroffer, and instead of rushing to answer, you just lean back, you maintain eye contact, and you let 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds of intentional silence hang in the air. What does that cultivated patience afford you in that moment?
It signals that you are assessing, not reacting. It forces your counterpart to sit there and grapple with their own anxiety. And very often, they will be the one to speak first.
Or even worse for them, they'll make an unnecessary concession just to fill that quiet space that you've created.
That silence becomes a weapon of leverage. It implies your thought process is too rigorous to be rushed, and your position is too strong to be rattled by pressure.
So we encourage you to go out and test these 3 changes. Remove the qualifiers, implement strategic silence, and control your intonation. Do it in your very next professional interaction. And just observe the immediate, almost revolutionary change in how seriously your message, and therefore your competence, is received. Go practice sounding like the leader you already are.